All right, welcome to the Virtual Coffee Lab. My name is Mike, and we're here today talking with Evan Gilman from Royal Coffee. He's the creative director. I'm going to bring him into the studio here in just a second. And we're going to talk about coffee, finding great coffee for the home coffee roaster. I did another video about this, and I'll have that link up in the corner. You can check that out. But I want to talk to Evan at Royal because I love their website, and they've got some great resources. But we're going to talk about things we should be looking for and some of the real neat resources that they have. It's great to have you on the channel. Thanks for joining me today. And Evan, I stopped by your booth at the Specialty Coffee Association out in Portland, Oregon, and I met a lot of great people out there. I am a customer. I've ordered from you in the past. I've ordered from a lot of different greens suppliers, but I really appreciate some of the resources you have on your site. So what I wanted to do is, if you could just spend a minute and talk about Royal Coffee and maybe your role there, and then we can get into maybe taking a look at a product and talking about that and how a home coffee roaster, how it can benefit a home coffee roaster.
For sure, yeah. Thanks for having me again. And to tell you a little bit about Royal Coffee, we're a green coffee importer that brings in coffee from all around the world that's been around since 1978. So we started with a single bag in our Emeryville tiny warehouse. And from sitting on that single bag, we've built up to where we are now. And I'm the creative director is my title at Royal Coffee. I've been here since 2015. And that just means that I wear a lot of hats. So whether it's creating home roaster content like this even, and on our product pages for some of our crown jewel line, I also purchase coffee from the Indonesia and Southeast Asia areas, and I do outbound logistics. I do classes at the Crown. I'm a certified Q assistant instructor. So I do a lot of coffee-related things, and try not to put too many limits on it.
Nice. I've seen you in some of your videos when you're talking about coffees. A lot of your staff share in that responsibility, and I've seen you in a couple of those videos. You shared you have various roles at Royal, and I noticed in your bio there was a little blurb about home coffee roasting. Can you share maybe a little of your own experience roasting coffee or whatever it was referring to in your bio about home coffee roasting?
I love roasting coffee at home for myself, and also at the Crown on smaller roasters intended for home roasting. I started maybe in about 2010 or so with a little popcorn popper, and just did that for a while. I didn't have any sort of like attenuator to turn down the heat or fan. I just plugged and unplugged it on the fly until I got a decent roast time. It was not technical in the least, and then from there I just started adding more and more specificity to how I wanted to roast, and use better and better machines as time went on. So anything from the B-More or the Quest M3S or now the ILEO Bullet, I've roasted on a lot of home roasting machines and sample roasters and smaller scale things, Gene Cafes, and fresh roasts, all the little machines out there. So
awesome.
I think they all have a lot of different things to offer, and they're all super interesting to roast on.
You're right. I mean, they're all different, and they all have unique characteristics. They can roast some great coffee. Definitely.
Absolutely. And I think we were talking even just a little bit before about how you can get into your own groove on how you want to roast for yourself. But then when you get to the larger scale with those bigger roasters, maybe bigger than a popcorn popper, you can start sharing with your friends too. So that's always super valuable to me, is to be able to share it with other people.
Yeah, that's a point in time, and at least in my home coffee roasting experience, when I started sharing my coffee, it was a little intimidating at first, But at the same time, I was able to get some really good feedback, and it caused me to go through a little more coffee, so it was more time behind the roaster, and that's kind of what I've been sharing on the channel here. It's really a wonderful thing to be able to share your coffee with family, maybe some friends, and I know some of the viewers are doing that, so that's cool. That's cool. So let's talk about Royal. Why would a home coffee roaster visit your site and consider your coffee?
Yeah, so the crown jewels in specific are pretty much the top tier coffees that we get, so that we are able to break down into smaller packages so that they're more accessible for, yeah, different parts of the market, like home roasters, for example. So these ones, they've been very highly selected, probably cupped anywhere from like 6 to 8 times before we end up choosing one. Um, so we'll have, yeah, type your type samples, your um, pre-shipment samples, your arrival samples, and then we go through selection as far as like, will this be a crown jewel? And then we roast it a number of times in-house and say, is this still up to snuff? So we have a lot of experience with these coffees by the time we release them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's valuable for folks who are home roasting, because this can be even a 22-pound box, if it seems small to like an importer like we are, is, can be a large purchase for somebody who's doing home roasting. So we want them to be able to expect a certain amount of quality and to be able to fulfill what their expectations through whatever coffee it is they're purchasing. So whatever information we can provide for them is to that goal.
Evan, did you have anything else related to a home coffee roaster wanting to learn more about roasting coffee?
That's right on point. Like, this information that we provide here is not exclusive to Royal. Like, other people can have this information as well, but we just want to provide everything about the coffee so that you can make an informed choice.
Royal they offer other resources. I think you've had webinars that people can register for. Some of them are free.
Yeah, we have all sorts of our past webinars up on our website. So if you're interested in learning more about any number of topics, we have just a ton of stuff up there. You can click around and find, anything from like how to judge coffee quality to, what's another one? Like actual interviews with producers. So if there's a producer you're particularly interested in getting coffee from and maybe they're on the menu, you can see if there's a webinar from them too. Perchance there might be.
All right, well, let's take a look. This is the Ethiopia Organic Chelbessa Raised Bed Natural Coffees. Did I say that right? I usually murder these names, these coffee names.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds good to me.
All right, awesome. So yeah, let's talk about this. This coffee is just an example because I want to focus on resources, things that home coffee roasters should be looking for. And I'll scroll down the page here in a second, but is there anything you want to just describe in this portion of the screen that would be helpful for a home roaster?
Well, we've started to do these short videos, just like introducing the coffee and talking a little bit about the background of it and perhaps a little bit about how it tastes. So you can watch our short videos. This one has Caitlin and Chris at the Crown just talking about this coffee while drinking it. And it's like just a nice short thing to look at if you're into the short videos.
You're tasting in these videos, right?
Yeah, sometimes we'll have the coffee in front of us and tasting along while we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And there's some photos there of the, different photos related to the product itself. Yeah, that's Mulemabet Tamiru. I think she's the first female pilot from Ethiopia. And she's a relation of the person who produces his coffee.
So there's actually a relationship and personal connection with some of these farmers.
Yeah, absolutely, and like especially for the crown jewel ones, like there'll be actual relationship coffees that like Chris or I or someone with the traders, they actually know the folks who are behind this coffee.
All right, yeah. So let's move a little further down here. This is the part that is really exciting for those that aren't familiar with Royal. Now, I don't think this is done on every one of your coffees, is it?
No, this is specifically for Crown Jewel coffees. And then if there's still some of the same coffee left in large bags, we sometimes add this to those product pages as well.
Nice.
Yeah, so for the overview, we just kind of give you a little taste of what's throughout the rest of the review. So in the analysis, as we call them, we provide all sorts of green metrics and like roast curves and different ways to look at the coffee. But in the overview, we're just kind of showing you where it came from, the process it might be, flavor, roasting, brewing. But you can go through the tabs and see more detail on all of those different aspects of the coffee.
I love the cloud. I
Yeah.
love that cloud.
That was one of the first things we did was do the word cloud for the flavors that we got in our cuppings. So those word clouds are sourced from, those 6 or so cuppings that we've done with this coffee, and the largest words are the ones that occurred most frequently.
Yeah. So Evan, how many people are contributing to the word cloud?
I would say it's somewhere between 10 and probably like 10 to 20.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like the little meters that you have on the screen here as well. So if somebody's looking for just a quick glance, if they're just trying to scan the pages quickly, they've got some really good information. Information about the source.
So we give a little bit about the background of how we were introduced to the producer, where it's grown, how it's grown,
Yep.
and aspects about like basically where it comes from. So this coffee in specific is from southwestern Ethiopia and super high elevation. So you get to know a little bit about where it comes from.
All right, and then the greens themselves.
So in my mind, this is one of the most important pages for home coffee roasters. This is going to tell you like specifically about the coffee you're going to roast and how it might be roasted, just based on its physical attributes. So you can see at the very top left of that green graphic there it says 707 grams per liter or 740 grams per liter. That's going to tell you something about how it's going to roast. Same with the total moisture content. So 10.5 is kind of like, in the middle of the range. It's not super dry. It's not a super moist coffee. And then water activity is a little bit more complicated, but that's like put super simply how much coffee or how much water is moving in and out of the coffee, or how much potential there is for water to move in and out of the coffee. And that can give you a good idea of how this coffee will keep and how it will roast too.
Some look at moisture in greens as a condition of freshness. Is that something that's true or relevant?
So I would say, generally speaking, if you have a higher moisture content, you're going to range towards higher water activity as well.
Mm-hmm.
What that means for freshness, the higher moisture content you have, there's a chance that the coffee is not going to keep quite as well as a drier coffee. So a coffee with lower water activity will, in general, will keep better and for longer than a coffee with higher water activity.
That's interesting.
But that being said, coffees with higher water activity have more potential for Maillard reactions and can have, you can have some very delicious results with a coffee that has higher water activity. You just want to use it a little bit quicker.
So is this a range that's on here? I mean, I'm seeing an at sign, so that's not a range.
Oh, it's
right?
at 22.1 Celsius, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, the temperature.
Okay, so
I
that's how
think
you're
that could be-
measuring it at a stable temperature. That's how you're measuring all of the moisture content.
Yeah, for water activity, it gives you the temperature as well. That circle there for you, just to go over it really quickly, that's the
Yeah.
spread of screen sizes. So the different size of coffee seeds you have in your batch. So if you get a wide distribution of screen sizes versus a very narrow distribution, that's going to react differently in the roaster as well.
I think that one of the neatest things that you guys are doing why you are showing 3 different roasters. And at one point back in the day, you were showing a Beemore on here as well.
So I started our home roast analysis on the Beemore, um, but we wanted to give like a wide range of different roasters as well as roasters the people as well as roasters the machines. So
Hmm.
I'm usually doing the smaller scale roasters, and Doris is doing the larger ones. And a lot of times Isabella will be on the Ikawa. So we have very different approaches to roasting, all 3 of us. So depending on which profile you read, you're going to get a different opinion on how to roast or how to achieve those, or how you want the roast to turn out.
Yeah, can we talk about that point for just a second? There's other people that sell greens and they will have tasting notes. And one of my questions has always been, well, how are they roasting this? I wish I had more details of how they're roasting this. So, the information you're providing here is more than just, hey, we roasted on this roaster to, this temperature or to this roast level for this length of time.
That we want to show different approaches to roasting because we know that people are going to handle coffee different regardless. So Doris favors like high airflow profiles, and she likes like faster roasts like that are on the lighter side. And she's doing all the production roasting for the Crown. So this is a lot of times the coffee you're going to get when you go there, and it's more of like, for lack of a better word, it's like specialty coffee, like third wavy sort of
Yeah.
style. So for those people who are purchasing these coffees with that intent, her profiles are really great. However, I as a home roaster have gotten a lot of questions about like, hey, why are you roasting so light? Like, can't you roast a little bit darker? And I want to get more like sugars. I don't care as much about the acids. I'm more focused on sugar development. So that's what I favor towards, and I have a sweet tooth personally. So while I like Doris's roast a lot. Like I really like her roasts. I also want to roast for people who are mostly focused on the sweet stuff.
So some of the notes or the details that are shared here, we got charge temperature, first crack time and temperature, end of roast time and temperature, phase percentages, and even how she is this gas. Yeah, this is how she applied her heat. That's awesome. That is, and this is the exhaust temperature up at the top.
Yep, and we're just
Yeah.
gonna give you like as much information as we possibly can. Like we're not subscribed to the idea that we're gonna hide our secret sauce behind our coffee roasts.
Yeah,
We want to share as much as possible.
yeah.
So that's all in Cropster on the Diedrich, and then I use the Bullet's native roast world to document the roast on the Bullet.
Okay.
So as you can actually, my roast was pretty comparable to hers in a lot of ways. Yeah,
So
similar
your
roast time and everything actually. That's,
the roast temperatures are difficult to compare.
yeah,
Different
that's
roasters, right? Different batch sizes, all of that. But
true.
yeah, that's really interesting.
But
So
the
it's
time is pretty close.
941,
Yeah, and then
941 versus
Doty's
921.
had 921, so hers is a
Yeah.
little shorter, but
Yeah.
yeah, and those 20 seconds can make a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like we had fairly similar phases as well. So I'm gonna bring this up
Here
here.
we go. I got it. Yeah.
43, 40, and then
That's a pretty long Maillard.
yeah, I had a longer Maillard for sure.
Yep.
So I tend to prefer just aiming for those sugars. And especially on a natural coffee, getting a really long Maillard and just bringing out super jammy notes. I really like doing that. I like looking at Doris's roast, and I like looking at the Ikawa as well. Sometimes even before I do my roast. Even though I know it's hard to translate, sometimes it's instructive to see how the coffee reacted to the way that the different roasters influenced it.
Yeah. Most people that look at an Ikawa profile, they kind of just have a plain blank stare on their face
Yeah.
the first time they see it.
Yeah, it's pretty different from all the rest, and it's
Yeah.
it'll self-adjust to try to follow your profile.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice. And it seems like I think Isabella's doing these, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isabella. So she said I think she's got two different standard profiles that she just pops in and runs. Well, Evan, I really appreciate you sharing this. So as far as somebody that comes on the site and they're not sure exactly what type of coffee they want, they're maybe looking for certain notes, or maybe they're looking for a certain region. What's the best approach to help them find the best coffee? I mean, other than what we've talked about.
I would say specifically look for seasonality. So look for the fresh coffees. Generally speaking, the crown jewel coffees sell quick enough that you're not going to see an old one regardless. But I would say like start looking for Ethiopian coffees right now because they're going to be really good and super fresh. And yeah, I mean, it just depends on seasonality. Of course, coffee is harvested getting towards the winter months in whichever hemisphere it's grown in. So some of the producing countries like Colombia, Indonesia, Kenya, they actually straddle the equator. So they're going to have seasonality all throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
But then other coffees, like in the northern hemisphere, start looking for those like, Central Americans in, if you're lucky, like March and April. That's not the case usually these days. But
Okay.
and then from Africa and places where there's longer transit times in the northern hemisphere, start looking for those to arrive around like June or July. And yeah, I'd say just look for seasonality, especially like fresh coffee is always going to be the best.
No, that's really helpful. So on your site, if I jump off this page and we go to coffee, and we got 22-pound crown jewels, that's where we started off, and that's where we ended up sifting through and finding the coffee we were just looking at.
Yeah.
I can see here you've got this sort feature.
Yeah, sort by latest, so you can
Yeah.
like just look at the number of the crown jewel, like 1526, 1527. Those are going to be like the latest releases.
Mhm.
Sneak peek this Friday, we're going to release a coffee from Mexico from Mayan Harvest. So there's, yeah, I would say look at those crown jewel numbers, like CJ number whichever, and the latest ones are the freshest ones.
Nice.
But there's some that are going to have super low water activities, for example, and those are going to hold really well. And that's going to be like, those might have been released before, but they're still going to be shining and being super beautiful coffees.
Yeah, if it's on this page, it's still a great coffee, right?
Yeah, we audit them too. So if they've been up there for a few months, we'll taste it again and say, time to pull that one, or time to discount it too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Was there anything else that we didn't cover that's really helpful for the home coffee roastery?
We have, even in our blog, we have articles specifically related to various coffee roasters. There's an article up there on the Beemore that's gotten a lot of hits. It's like co-fermented coffees as espresso. That's a fun one. Or roasting for creation or destruction. That's kind of like a technical look at how we roast. So there's just such a great amount of information on here. A super big wealth of information. So I would say, yeah, just keep being curious. Keep roasting.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, Evan, thank you so much for everything that you guys do at Crown. Thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. And I will have a link down in the description to Royal Coffee, so that if you want to check out what they have and look at the resources they have, I would highly encourage you to do that. And thanks again for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Mike.